The ship was dark. No lights, no sound, nothing. It floated above the earth like a shadow, hiding behind the moon, watching, waiting. Inside the ship, Commander Voran stood in front of a large screen. His eyes were fixed on the blue planet below. He had seen many planets in his long life. Planets with fire, planets with ice, planets with creatures that had no names. But this planet, this small, wet, noisy planet, was different. "Begin the scan," Voran said. His voice was flat, cold, like someone who had never once felt afraid in his life. The crew moved quickly. Aliens with long fingers and silver skin moved across the control room, pressing buttons, reading data, preparing equipment. They did not speak much. They did not need to. Their species communicated through short signals and logic. Emotion was something they had read about, something weak species had. The mission was simple: study the humans, find their weaknesses, report back to the High Command. Then the invasion would begin. Voran had done this many times before. Every planet they had studied had been easy. Creatures that feared death always made mistakes, and creatures that made mistakes lost. He was not worried about Earth. "Commander," said Tail, the science officer. She was younger than the others, with bright eyes that moved fast. "First scan is complete. The dominant species on this planet is called human. Population, 8 billion. No energy shields, no faster-than-light travel, no weapons that can reach us in orbit." Voran nodded slowly. "As expected," he said. "Primitive." Tail looked at her screen again. "They do have weapons, Commander. Many weapons, in fact. They have enough weapons to destroy their own planet several times over." Voran turned to look at her. "They built weapons to destroy themselves?" he asked. "Yes," Tal said quietly. There was a short silence in the room. Then Voran made a sound, the alien version of a laugh. "Then they will destroy themselves before we even arrive. Good, less work for us." The crew agreed. Some made the same sound. They all looked relaxed, but Tail did not laugh. She kept looking at her screen. Her bright eyes moved slowly across the data, reading, thinking, something small pulling at the back of her mind, something she could not name yet. The ship stayed in orbit for 3 days before they began watching the war footage. It was Voran's idea. "If we are going to invade, we must understand how they fight," he said. "Pull all historical records of human conflict." So they did. The screen filled with images. Hundreds of years of human war. Humans fighting with swords. Humans fighting in trenches filled with mud and blood. Humans in the sky. Humans in the ocean. Humans in the desert. Humans everywhere. Always fighting. Voran watched with calm eyes. "They are violent," he said. "Good. Violent creatures are easy to predict. They always attack without thinking." But then something strange appeared on the screen. It was an old video, grainy and dark, a battlefield somewhere on Earth. Smoke was everywhere, explosions going off in the distance, and in the middle of all that fire and noise, one human soldier was crawling, slowly, painfully, dragging another soldier who could not walk. The injured soldier was heavy. The one carrying him was bleeding too. But he did not stop. He kept moving, inch by inch, through the smoke, through the fire. He was not thinking about himself. He was only thinking about the other. Voran watched this in silence. The rest of the crew watched too. Nobody made the laughing sound this time. "Why is he doing that?" asked one of the younger crew members. "The one he is carrying is already badly hurt. Carrying him puts both of them in danger. It is not logical." Tail did not answer right away. She replayed the video, watching the soldier's face. There was no calculation in those eyes, no logic, no plan, just something raw and burning and completely impossible to measure. "I don't think logic is what is driving him," she said finally. Voran did not respond. He was still watching the screen, and for the first time in a very long time, something moved inside him. Something quiet and uncomfortable. Something that felt almost like uncertainty. He turned away from the screen. Keep collecting data, he said, his voice still flat, still cold. But Tal noticed his hands. They were not still anymore. 3 weeks had passed. The alien ship was still hiding behind the moon, still watching, still recording. But something had changed inside the ship. The crew was quieter now. They used to talk during their off hours, short logical conversations about mission timelines and planet statistics. But now, many of them spent their free time sitting in front of the screen, watching human footage, not because Vorin ordered them to, but because they could not stop. It was Tal who first said it out loud. The data does not make sense. She was standing in the middle of the control room, a large holographic screen floating in front of her, filled with numbers and charts and video clips. She had not slept in 2 days. Vorin walked over slowly. Explain. Tal pointed at the screen. Every species we have ever studied follows the same pattern, she said. When a creature knows it will lose a fight, it runs. It is simple survival logic. Even the most aggressive species we have encountered will retreat when the numbers are against them. Yes, Vorin said. And? Humans do not do this. She pulled up a video, a battle from hundreds of years ago. A small group of soldiers, outnumbered by thousands, standing in a narrow mountain pass. They had no chance of winning. Everyone around them knew it. The enemy knew it. The humans knew it. But they did not run. They stood there, fought, and held that pass for days. 300 soldiers, Tal said quietly, against an army of over 100,000. They all died, every single one, and yet to this day, humans call them heroes. The young crew member who had spoken before, his name was Kel, leaned forward from his seat. But they lost. Why would they celebrate losing? Tal looked at him. That is exactly the problem, she said. By our logic, dying without winning is failure. But humans do not see it that way. They see something else entirely. Vorin crossed his arms. What do they see? Tal paused. She did not have the right word. Her language had no word for it. They see meaning, she said finally. They believe that how you fight matters, not just whether you win. The room was silent. Vorin stared at the frozen image on the screen. 300 soldiers standing in a mountain pass they could not hold. That is not logical, he said. No, Tal agreed. It is not. She moved to the next piece of data. Another battle, this one more recent. A city completely surrounded by an enemy army. The city should have fallen in days. It had no supply lines, no reinforcements coming, no real hope. But the people inside did not give up. They fought for months, starving, freezing, dying one by one. And still they fought. Our computers tried to calculate the point at which humans surrender, Tal said. The calculation kept failing. Every time we set a threshold, the humans crossed it and kept going. Our models cannot find the limit because... She stopped. Vorin looked at her. Because what? Tal looked up from her screen. Because we are starting to think there is no limit. Nobody laughed this time. Kel was staring at the screen, his silver face very still. Commander, he said slowly, if a creature does not calculate its own survival, how do you defeat it? Vorin had no answer. He turned and walked back to his chair at the front of the ship. He sat down and looked at the blue planet below, the clouds moving slowly across the oceans, everything looking so peaceful from up here. He had invaded 12 planets. He had never once asked himself that question before. Keep watching, he said quietly. But his voice was different now, just slightly, just enough for Tal to notice. The certainty was gone, and that night, while the rest of the crew slept, Tal sat alone in the dark and watched more footage, battle after battle after battle, and the more she watched, the more one thought kept coming back to her, circling her mind like something she could not chase away. These creatures are not what we thought. She did not know what they were yet, but she was beginning to understand that the answer was going to change everything. It was Tal who called the meeting. That was unusual. Meetings were always called by Commander Vorin. He was the one who gave orders. He was the one who decided what the crew would do and when they would do it. But Tyle had spent the entire night preparing something, and when morning came she walked straight to Voren and said, "I need to show you something. All of you." Voren looked at her for a long moment. Then he called the crew together. They gathered in the main room, 7 aliens standing around the holographic screen. The blue light of the display reflected off their silver skin, making them look cold and sharp like statues. Tyle stood in the center. "I have found the answer to Kel's question," she said. "How do you defeat something with no limit?" Everyone was listening. "First," she said, "you have to understand what is driving it." She pulled up a new set of files. Not battle footage this time. Something different, quieter. A video played on the screen. A human woman sitting in a hospital room holding a small child in her arms. The child was sick. Very sick. The woman had not left that room in days. Her eyes were red. Her face was pale. She had not eaten properly, had not slept properly, and yet she sat there completely still, holding the child and singing softly. The crew watched in silence. "This is not a soldier," Tale said. "This is a mother. She is experiencing something humans call love. It is an emotion, a feeling so strong that it overrides all logical decision-making. She knows she needs food. She knows she needs sleep. But she cannot leave, because the feeling will not let her." Kel frowned. "Emotions are chemical signals. We have studied this. All biological creatures have basic chemical responses. Fear, hunger, pain." "Yes," Tale said. "But human emotions are not basic, they are—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Amplified, louder than anything our models have ever recorded. And they connect to each other. Love connects to loyalty. Loyalty connects to sacrifice. Sacrifice connects to something humans call purpose and purpose." She clicked to a new video. A soldier in a burning building, running back inside, not away from it, to save someone still trapped. Purpose makes them run toward the fire. The room was very quiet. Vorian was watching the screen. His face was unreadable, but his eyes had not moved from the footage. "You are saying," he said slowly, "that their emotions are not a weakness." "I am saying," Tyle replied carefully, "that I was wrong to assume they were." Another video played. This one from a different kind of battlefield. Not a war, a disaster, a city hit by a terrible earthquake. Buildings collapsed, people trapped, and within hours, thousands of humans were there, digging through rubble with their bare hands, strangers helping strangers, people who had never met each other working side by side without anyone ordering them to. "They do not need a commander to tell them to help each other," Tyle said. "Something inside them simply responds automatically. They cannot turn it off." Voren finally looked away from the screen. He looked at Tale. "What are you telling me?" he asked. Tale took a slow breath. "I am telling you that we have been studying the wrong thing," she said. "We watched them fight. We looked at their weapons, their tactics, their history, but we did not look at why they fight. And Commander, the why is the most dangerous part." Voren said nothing. The ship hummed quietly around them, the engines running low, keeping them hidden, keeping them still. And for a long moment nobody spoke. Then Kel said very quietly, almost to himself, "What happens when you threaten something that fights for love?" Nobody answered him, but everyone in that room was thinking the same thing, and none of them liked the answer they were finding. Commander Voren did not sleep that night. He sat in his chair at the front of the ship and looked at Earth. The planet was turning slowly, cities glowing like small fires on the dark side, oceans reflecting starlight. It looked gentle from up here, quiet, almost harmless. He had thought it was harmless. He was no longer sure. When morning came, he called Tal back to the front of the ship. "Show me more," he said. Tal had been expecting this. She had prepared a new set of files through the night. She had labeled them simply, one word at the top of the folder: rage. "This is what happens," she said, "when you threaten something a human loves." She played the first video. It was from a human war. A town had been destroyed, families were gone, homes burned, and the soldiers from that town, the ones who were still alive, the ones who had come back to find nothing left. They did not break down. They did not retreat. They went forward. The alien computer had tried to calculate their behavior and had failed completely. The system kept returning the same error message, pattern unrecognized, because what those soldiers did made no tactical sense. They were outnumbered. They were tired. They had every reason to stop, but they did not stop. They fought with a fury that had no ceiling. "Watch their faces," Tail said quietly. Vorin watched, and he saw it. Something in the human eyes in those moments. Something that was not fear, not calculation, not strategy. It was something else entirely. Something raw and ancient and burning. "Our species feels discomfort when threatened," Tail said. "We feel the signal to move away, to protect ourselves, to calculate. But humans," she paused, "humans transform. It is like they become a different creature entirely. The same body, but something different driving it." Kel had joined them, standing a few steps behind, listening. "Is that why they held the city?" he asked. "The one surrounded by the enemy army? You said they fought for months with no hope. Was that this? Rage?" "Not just rage," Tail said. "Something mixed, rage and love together. They were protecting something behind them, people they cared about. And when those two things combine in a human, love and rage at the same time," she shook her head slowly, "our computers cannot model it. There is no ceiling to what they will do." Vorin stood up from his chair. He walked slowly to the screen and looked at the footage, frame by frame, the faces of those soldiers. He had fought many species. He had seen many kinds of warriors, but he had never seen anything that looked like this. "They are not calculating survival," he said. "No," Tal said. "They are not thinking about winning." "No." "Then what are they thinking about?" Tal was quiet for a moment. "I think," she said, "they are not thinking at all. I think in those moments, they have gone somewhere beyond thought." Vorin turned away from the screen. He walked to the window and looked at Earth again, the gentle blue planet, the soft clouds. "Show me the historical examples," he said. "The small groups, the ones who should have lost." Tael nodded and pulled them up one by one. 300 soldiers holding a mountain pass against 100,000. A single ship fighting an entire fleet and refusing to sink. A small group of fighters in a frozen forest, outnumbered and surrounded, holding on for weeks until help arrived. A man standing alone in front of a line of war machines, not moving, not running, just standing. Each one impossible by any calculation. Each one real. Vorin watched every single one. He did not speak for a long time. Then very quietly he said the thing that had been building inside him for days. "How do you defeat something that does not calculate its own survival?" It was the same question Kel had asked before, but this time, it did not sound like curiosity. It sounded like fear. And then the alarm went off. A sharp, sudden sound that cut through the silence of the ship like something breaking. Red light flooded the control room. Every crew member snapped upright. Kel ran to the sensor panel, read the data, and looked up with wide eyes. "Commander," he said, his voice very careful, very controlled. "A human satellite just changed its orbit." He paused. "It is pointing directly at us." For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. The red light kept pulsing, slow and steady like a heartbeat. The alarm had stopped, but its echo was still in the air, and every alien in that control room was standing completely still, looking at Kel, waiting. Vorin spoke first. "How certain are you?" Kel checked again, double-checked, triple-checked. "Certain," he said. "The satellite adjusted its angle 14 minutes ago. Its sensors are now aligned directly with our position. It is not a coincidence." Tel was already at her station, pulling up data, her fingers moving fast across the controls. "I am reading increased activity across multiple human communication channels," she said. "Military frequencies, government networks, emergency coordination systems." She looked up. "They are talking to each other. A lot." "About us?" Vorin asked. "About something in orbit," she said. "Something that should not be there." Voren stood very still. In 12 invasions, this had never happened. They had always been invisible, always been safe up here above the clouds, watching and unseen. The idea that something below had looked up and seen them back, it was deeply uncomfortable. "How long until they can confirm our exact position?" he asked. "If they redirect more satellites," Tail said, calculating quickly. "Perhaps 6 hours, maybe less. Human technology is primitive, but they have a great deal of it, and they are moving very fast." "How fast?" Tail paused, watching her screen. "Faster than I expected," she admitted. Voren began to pace, something he had never done before in front of his crew. He walked slowly across the control room thinking, and the crew watched him and said nothing because they could all feel it, the shift, the thing that was happening in the air between them. "Put the human communications on the main screen," he said. "I want to see their response." Tal routed the signal. The screen filled with intercepted transmissions, audio and video, human voices speaking in different languages, all being translated in real time by the ship's systems, and what Voren saw and heard made him stop pacing. There was no panic. He had expected panic. Every other species, when they discovered something unknown in their sky, had panicked. There had been screaming, disorder, crowds running, governments collapsing. It was always chaos. But the humans were not panicking. They were working. Military commanders were on calls, calm and direct, giving orders, sharing coordinates. Within hours, nations that the ship's historical record showed as bitter enemies were sharing information with each other. Satellite data was being passed from one country to another without hesitation. Military networks that had never communicated were suddenly connected. "They are organizing," Kel said, his voice quiet with something close to disbelief. "Against us," Tal added. "They do not even know what we are," Kel said. "They do not know where we came from or what we want. They cannot see us clearly yet, and they are already organized." Voren watched a human military general on the screen, standing in a room full of people, speaking clearly, steadily. His face was serious but not afraid. He was pointing at maps, giving instructions, and everyone around him was listening and moving immediately, efficiently, like a single machine. "They have done this before," Voren said slowly, not really speaking to anyone, just thinking out loud. "This is not new to them, being threatened from outside, having an unknown enemy, organizing fast under pressure." He watched the general's face again. "They have trained for this." Tal looked at him. "Commander," she said carefully, "there is something else." She pulled up a different feed, not military this time, civilian news channels, social media, ordinary humans talking. Voren expected fear. He expected arguments, division, people fighting each other about what to do. Instead, something strange was happening. People were gathering, not running away from each other, but toward each other. Neighborhoods coming together. Strangers talking in the streets. Humans who in the historical records had spent years hating each other. Different countries, different beliefs, different languages, all looking up at the same sky, united by the same unknown thing above them. "When they are threatened from outside," Tael said quietly, "they stop fighting each other." She paused. "They become one." Voren looked at the screen for a long time. Then he turned away. "Prepare a cloaking boost," he said. "Full power to the stealth systems. Do not let them confirm our position." The crew moved to obey, but then Tael's panel made a new sound, different from the alarm, softer. A single steady tone. She looked at it. Her face went very still. "Commander," she said. Voren turned. "A signal is coming up from the surface." Tael said slowly, "It is not military. It is not a weapon lock. It is not a scan." She looked at him. "It is a message." The room went completely silent. "Someone down there," Tael continued, "is trying to talk to us." Voren stood at the center of the room, red light still pulsing softly around him, the blue planet filling the window behind him. 8 billion humans below, organized, watching, ready, and one of them, just one, reaching up through the silence of space with a simple signal. Not a threat, a question. Voren looked at the signal on Tail's screen, and for the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. Voren stood in front of the signal for a long time. Nobody on the ship spoke. Nobody moved. They all watched their commander and waited because this was the kind of moment that did not exist in any training manual, any mission protocol, any record of any invasion they had ever prepared for. An unknown species reaching up and saying hello. "Can we decode the message?" Voren asked. "Already done," Tail said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright, alert. "The translation is simple. The message is 7 words." She put it on the main screen. "We know you are there. Talk to us." The crew read it. Kel made a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite anything else. "They know we are here, and their first response is to ask for a conversation. Not to attack," Tail said. "Not to run," Kel added. Voren read the message again. 7 words, calm and direct. No anger in them, no fear. Just a simple invitation from a species that had just discovered something unknown in its sky and had decided the right thing to do was reach out and speak. He made his decision. "Open a channel," he said. Tail looked at him just for a moment. Just long enough for him to see the surprise in her eyes. Then she turned to her panel and opened the channel. There was a pause. A few seconds of static and silence. Then a voice came through. It was a human voice, deep and measured, speaking slowly and clearly as if the speaker understood that whoever was listening might need a moment to process each word. "This is Dr. Yara Ose, representing a joint team of scientists and diplomats from multiple nations on Earth. We detected your presence 3 days ago. We do not know who you are or where you come from. We are not transmitting this message as a threat. We are transmitting it because we would like to understand." Voren looked at Tael. She was already recording everything. He leaned toward the communication panel. "We hear you," he said. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the voice came back and something in it had shifted just slightly. The smallest change in tone. "Good," Dr. Ose said. "Then let us talk." What followed was 3 hours that none of the crew would ever forget. Dr. Ose did not ask who they were planning to invade. She did not demand they leave. She did not threaten them. She asked questions, careful, curious, patient questions. What was their world like? How far had they traveled? Had they encountered other species? Were they well? Were they well? Kel stared at the speaker when he heard that one. He had never in his life been asked by a potential enemy if he was well. Voren answered carefully, revealing little, but the conversation kept moving anyway because Dr. Ose was very good at conversation. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, her words were precise and warm at the same time, a combination that Voren's species did not have a word for. Tael was watching all of it with wide eyes, taking notes, thinking, and somewhere in the second hour it hit her, the real discovery, not the thing they had come to find, the weaknesses, the attack patterns, the surrender thresholds. None of that. Something else. She waited until there was a pause in the conversation. Then she walked to Voren's side and spoke quietly. "Commander, I need you to notice something." "What?" "We came here to study how humans fight," she said. "We have spent weeks watching their wars, their battles, their weapons, and we found things that confused us, things our computers could not model, things that had no logical explanation." "Yes," Voren said. "But look at what is happening right now," Tael said. "Right now, a human is talking to an alien species for the very first time in recorded history. She does not know if we are dangerous. She does not know our intentions. She has every reason to be afraid." Tael paused. "And she is curious." Voren looked at the speaker. "She is not afraid," he said slowly. "She is interested," Tael said. "She wants to understand us. The same way we wanted to understand them, Commander. We studied them for weeks and we thought we were learning about their warfare. But what we were actually watching every single time, the soldiers who would not retreat, the people who ran into burning buildings, the strangers who helped strangers after disasters, the 300 who held the pass. All of it." She looked at him directly, What we were watching was a species that refuses to close itself off, even to the unknown, even when it is dangerous, even when logic says to stop. They stay open, they reach out, they want to connect. Voren looked at the screen, at the 7 words still glowing there. We know you are there. Talk to us. That is not a military response, he said quietly. No, Tail said. It is something much harder to fight than a military response. The communication channel crackled softly. Dr. Osi's voice came back, patient as ever. Are you still there? Voren looked at the message from his high command that had been sitting in his inbox for the past hour. Unread. He knew what it said without opening it. He had seen messages like it 12 times before. Begin the invasion. Now. He looked at Tyle. He looked at Kel. He looked at his crew, all of them watching him, all of them having watched the same footage, heard the same voice, felt the same thing shifting inside them over these past weeks. Then he turned back to the communication panel. We are still here, he said. The message from High Command had been sitting unopened for 6 hours. Voren opened it at last. The words were short, as commands always were. Studies complete. Begin invasion protocol. Earth falls within the month. He read it once. He read it again. Then he set it down and looked out at the planet below. The sun was rising on the eastern side of Earth, golden light spreading slowly across the oceans. He had watched this happen many times over the past weeks. The way humans called it sunrise. The way some of them would stop what they were doing just to look at it, just to be present with it. He had found that strange at first. Now he thought he understood it a little better. He called the crew together one final time. They gathered in the main room, the same 7 aliens who had arrived here weeks ago thinking this would be simple, thinking they already knew everything they needed to know. Standing together now in a very different silence, Voren looked at each of them. High Command has given the order, he said. Nobody responded. I am not going to follow it. Still nobody spoke, but something moved through the room. A collective exhale, a tension releasing. Commander, Kel said carefully. Refusing a direct order from High Command has never been done. It is. I know what it is, Voren said. They will send another ship, Tel said quietly. If not us, someone else will come. Yes, Voren said, probably, but that is not our decision to make. This one is. He turned to face them all. We came here to find weaknesses, he said. We spent weeks watching these creatures fight. We watched them charge into fire. We watched them carry each other through battlefields. We watched them hold impossible positions against impossible odds. We watched them build enough weapons to destroy their own world and then spend equal energy trying to make sure those weapons were never used. He paused. We thought we were studying their warfare. He looked at the screen, still showing the planet below. We were studying something else entirely. He was quiet for a moment. We were watching a species that has not yet decided what it wants to be. They fight each other. Yes, they have done terrible things to each other, yes. But they also run into burning buildings. They also dig through rubble with their bare hands to pull out strangers. They also stand alone in front of machines that could crush them, because something inside them says this is wrong and it must be stopped. He shook his head slowly. They are not the most powerful species we have ever encountered. They are not the most advanced. They are not the most organized. He looked at his crew. But they are the only species I have ever encountered that fights for something beyond survival. They fight for each other, for meaning, for the idea that things could be better. And that, he said, is something I do not know how to invade. The room was silent. Tel had tears in her eyes, which surprised her because her species did not cry. She had not known she was capable of it until this moment. Kel was looking at the floor, thinking, his face very still. Then, one by one, the crew began to nod. No one was asked. No vote was taken. No order was given. They simply all arrived at the same place at the same time. Voren opened the communication channel one last time. Dr. Osi's voice answered quickly as if she had been waiting. You are still there, she said. We are leaving, Voren said. A pause. I see, she said. Her voice was calm, but he could hear something in it, something careful. Will you come back? Voren thought about that. I do not know, he said honestly. There are others who may come in our place. Others who did not watch what we watched. I cannot promise what they will do. Then what can you promise? Dr. Osi asked. Voren looked at the planet one last time. Sunrise still spreading across the oceans. Golden and slow and completely indifferent to invasions and decisions and the weight of everything. I can promise, he said, that we will tell them what we found here. Another pause. And what did you find? She asked. Voren looked at Tael. Tael looked back at him, and he answered with the only true thing he had learned in all these weeks. We found that you are still becoming something, he said quietly. And we think the universe should wait to see what that is. He heard Dr. Osi take a slow breath on the other end. Then she said very softly, Thank you. Voren closed the channel. He looked at his crew. Take us home. The ship turned silently away from Earth, away from the blue planet and the rising sun and the 8 billion creatures below who had no idea how close the sky had come to falling. The engines powered up slowly, and the darkness of space opened ahead of them, vast and quiet and full of things not yet known. As they left orbit, Tael stood at the back of the ship and watched Earth shrink in the window behind them, getting smaller, then smaller still, until it was just a point of blue light among 1,000 other lights. She kept watching until she could not tell it apart from the stars, and she thought about a soldier crawling through smoke to save someone he loved, a mother singing in a hospital room, a man standing alone in front of a machine, 300 people choosing meaning over survival, and one scientist, on a pale blue dot, reaching up into the silence and saying 7 words to the unknown. We know you are there. Talk to us. Tael smiled. It was the first time in her life she had done that. It felt, she decided, like the right response.